You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Beltran, episode 53. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. We're wrapping up the end of 2020, and just like in other years, I've noticed people starting to think about what they've done this year and what they plan to do next year. I've seen lots of comments and invitations for vision board workshops and ideas, and I know in a few weeks we'll be hearing a lot about resolutions. So I'm curious if there is something in your life that you are working towards right now, or something that you would like to have but don't yet have. I have a suggestion of how you can get that result for yourself. Before I tell you the suggestion, let's agree on some basics. We create our own results, not specifically because of what we do or don't do, but because of the thought process that creates the emotion that drives our actions. So, for example, two people can be doing the same things, one person from a place of confidence and the other person from a place of obligation. And even though they are taking the same actions, they could get different results. So in short, our thoughts create our results. The second basic I will tell you about is that right now we are thinking our current way, which is getting us our current results. And we can see the results that we want to create, but we don't yet have. And those new results will be created by thoughts that we are not currently thinking yet. Does that make sense? In my coaching community, we affectionately call this divide, noticing the difference between what we have now and what we want, and noticing what we're thinking now and what we could be thinking. We call this divide the river of misery. Imagine you are on the shore of this river thinking what you're currently thinking, feeling how you are currently feeling, doing the things you're currently doing, and getting your current results. And you can see on the other shore over there the result that you really, really want. You know that in order to get that result, you have to do different things. You need to feel a different way, and you need to think different thoughts. So how do we get across this river to that other shore? We cross the river of misery. We change our thinking. We allow ourselves to experience emotions that we are not feeling right now. We take different actions that we're not taking yet, and we stop doing things we are doing now. This is change. Many of us are resistant to change. It's not easy. It's not fun. It can be new and challenging and unknown. And that's why it is called the river of misery instead of the river of ease and fun. Today, I'm giving you the formula to figure out how you can cross that river. The formula is both a metaphor and an acronym. It's a raft. I call it the results raft. You know, like a simple vessel to get you from where you are now to where you want to be on the other side. And just to review, one other basic in order to do this work and learn how to use this raft, the coaching framework I use on myself and with my clients is called the model. I introduced you to the model way back in one of my earliest episodes, and then I shared a variation of it called the last best thing model, which is one of the most fun ways to use the model. And instead of making you go and find those episodes and re-listen to them, I'll just give you a quick refresher of the model. But of course, you can still go back and re-listen. The links to those episodes are in the show notes. of this episode at bexb.org/rafts, Rafts. The results raft that I am telling you about today is another variation of the model. So here's the refresher of the model. Every problem any of us ever have, every improvement any of us want to make, can be plugged into the model. It's just an easy-to-remember way to dissect any situation in order to notice what you are thinking, feeling, doing, and creating. When we go in the order as it's traditionally used, first we identify the neutral circumstance, the fact that everyone would agree to. It's a word or a sentence that has no modifiers and no charged language. The circumstance or the fact could be proven in court if necessary. Finding the neutral circumstance is so helpful because frequently we believe our thoughts as if they are indisputable facts. We think our thoughts without disputing them. If you've ever caught yourself saying something like, "She is so mean," or "This situation is tragic," even if most people would agree with you, those are still your thoughts. Those are not circumstances. Instead, to make those statements into neutral circumstances, you would strip out the story and just state the facts. So instead of saying, "She's so mean," we could say, "She turned and walked away from me after I asked her a question." Or instead of saying, "It's tragic," we can say, "X number of deaths have been reported due to Y event." So we've identified our C, our circumstance. The next thing we do is to identify our T, the thought we have about the circumstance. That's when we could use those first example statements. "She turned and walked away from me after I asked her a question. I think," here's my T, "I think she's mean." Then we figure out what feeling comes up for us when we think that thought. When I think someone is being purposefully mean to me, I feel offended. So that's the next line in the model. The F line is offended in this example. And then we notice what we do and what we don't do when we are feeling that feeling. So what do I do when I feel offended? Maybe I try to offend back. Maybe I complain to someone else. Maybe I retreat. What I don't do when I feel offended, I don't keep an open mind. I don't stay unconditionally loving. I don't put myself in the other person's shoes. You get the idea. So now we have a short list of actions, and this is the A line. So far, we've done C, circumstance, T, thought, F, feeling, and now A, action. And finally, I can ask myself, what is my result? When I try to offend someone and I complain and I'm not loving and I don't have an open mind and I don't put myself in their shoes, what am I creating for myself? Quite possibly the result is that I show up meaner than I would like. Maybe the mean side of me comes out. That is my R. That is my result. So that was just a quick refresher on how the model works. Now let's talk about today's variation, the results raft. Did you notice how the result that I created in that example that I just gave very closely resembled the original thought I had come up with when she turned and walked away? I thought she was mean, and my result was that the mean side of me came out unintentionally. So the model demonstrates how much of our thoughts create our results, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If our thoughts are going to be self-fulfilling, let's choose thoughts that fulfill the orders that we want rather than the orders that we don't want. Going back to the question I asked you at the beginning, is there something in your life that you're working towards right now, or something that you would like to have but don't yet have? Let's fulfill that order. We'll use the model backwards to reverse engineer a thought that you can practice thinking intentionally. I told you this tool, this raft, is a metaphor, meaning it helps you to get across the river of misery from where you are now to where you want to be. And it's also an acronym. The letters RAFT represent 80% of the model in reverse. Let's start with the result that you want. Name it, describe it, write it down, say it out loud. Then figure out what actions you need to take and what you need to stop doing, both mentally and actually, in order to create that result for yourself. Name them, describe them, and write those actions down. Now, look at the list of actions that you will start doing and the actions that you will stop doing. Think about what emotion, what feeling would drive those behaviors. And finally, think of what intentional thought you could think to create that emotion for yourself. I have a real life example for you. About a week ago, I got the idea that it would be cool to get more reviews on Apple Podcasts. I know in the past, reviews really help podcasters get noticed and recommended to new listeners, but to be honest, I don't know if reviews are still as important, and I don't know how many reviews would be necessary to make a difference. But even so, I just decided, maybe for vanity or my ego or just for the fun of experimentation, I want to try to increase my reviews. I wondered, what number should I shoot for? What if I could get a review for each episode that I've posted by the end of 2020? So counting the trailer, that would be 55 episodes. Challenge accepted. I will get 55 reviews by the end of 2020. If I plug this result into the results raft, it sounds like this. R, 55 reviews on Apple Podcasts. A, what are my actions? I ask for reviews. I tell people how to write a review. I track the reviews that I get. I notice who I know who hasn't left a review yet. I get creative about encouraging people to write reviews. And internally, I believe it is possible that I can get about 40 reviews in the next 15 days when I've only gotten about 15 reviews in the past 350 days. Also, what do? I overcome any hesitation about asking and reminding. So those are the actions I have started. And some of the actions I stop doing, I stop ignoring my reviews. I stop forgetting about my reviews or stop not asking. You get the idea. What feeling do I need to do in order to do all of those things? Maybe you're thinking I need to feel motivated to take those actions. That might work. But I chose to feel determined. I have made a firm decision and I am resolved not to change it. So what thought makes me feel determined? Here's one. I am all in on getting these reviews. Here's another one. I am not leaving anything to chance. So that is what I have been intentionally thinking since I set this goal a few days ago. And I am determined to do it. And I am taking action every day and checking my reviews and thinking of more people who I can ask and more ways to remind and encourage them. I'm sure this all sounds straightforward and maybe even motivating and inspiring, but let's be honest. Resistance is going to pop up. There are always obstacles on every journey, especially when you're crossing a river of misery on a raft. So here are some obstacles to watch out for when you are using a results raft for yourself. Once you've written out the 4 letters, R-A-F-T, and filled in the lines with your result, your action, your feeling, and your thought, you might start to feel a lack of belief. You might not be sure it will work. The protective, comfort-seeking part of your brain might offer you a lot of resistance. That's why for my goal, I decided to choose the intentional feeling of determined instead of motivated. I knew I would probably not feel motivated all the time. I knew I needed a feeling that meant that I would take action even if my beliefs slipped. You can remind yourself of this natural order of events about your own goals and the results that you're trying to create for yourself. Of course, it's possible that you may feel doubt and your belief could falter. Be prepared for that and keep going back to your intentional thought and feeling. Stay on your raft. Keep crossing that river. Another obstacle you could face on your journey is distraction. I'm going to go ahead and suggest that your distraction away from your goal that you want to create for yourself could be a form of resistance. What a surprise, right? So if you know that you are prone to distraction, plan for it. Maybe even build in a strategy for overcoming distraction in the intentional thought that you think. Or specify actions in your A line of your raft that will overcome any distraction. For example, maybe you stop doing some activities like social media or spending time with certain people while you're working on achieving your result. Another obstacle to successfully reaching your destination on your raft could be a midstream renegotiation. You could get half or a third of the way and start wondering if this is even what you really want. Again, this is so natural and normal and human, and you can plan for it in advance. Before you even start, you can come up with 20 reasons why this achievement is important to you and why you won't quit or turn back or dial it down. Then, when you hit the rough parts, instead of just one reason to keep going, you have 19 more to remind yourself of. You will win that negotiation. So what should you do with your raft? Use it every day. You know I am a big fan of writing things down, rereading what I have written, and repeating mantras for myself. So you can remind yourself of your results raft every single day. Notice your resistance at every stage. Do you have any resistance to the thought that you decided to think? Are you resisting feeling that emotion that you've decided on? Do you not like doing the actions that will get you your result? Notice all of that resistance and release it. How will you use your raft? What do you think? Will you use a results raft like I'm doing to create my result of meeting my review goal? What will you use your raft for? Do you have any resistance to reverse engineering the goals that you want to accomplish? Is there anything that I left out or didn't explain clearly enough? I want to hear your feedback, so leave me a comment on the show notes for this episode at bexb.org/rafts, R-A-F-T-S, or send me an email at hi@bexb.org. And in the spirit of my own results raft, help me get across my river. This one isn't really miserable. It's actually kind of fun. If you haven't already left me a review on Apple Podcasts, please give me just 3 more minutes of your time today after you finish listening to this episode and tell me what you think about this podcast. What has been your favorite episode? What do you like about hearing about resistance from me? Have you changed any of your own behaviors or feelings or thoughts because you've been listening? And just for inspiration, I want to read you a few reviews. Here's one from Coach Katie. Bex will definitely brighten your day. She has such a bright energy that invites you right into her life and creates an instant friendly connection. She's really articulate and creates such inspiring content that feels so accessible and actionable through her personal stories and experiences. This podcast is 1 in a million and lends such a warm, unique perspective. Thank you, Katie, for that lovely review. I was so excited to read it, and since this review was left earlier this year before I even made this goal, it was a wonderful surprise. Thank you so much. And one more review on Apple Podcasts for inspiration. Bex's podcast has made me laugh, but mostly it has made me think. From the beginning of the first season to now, I have listened to every Release Your Resistance podcast and some of them 2 or 3 times so I could take notes. She's passionate about her subject and the excitement shines through. She has made me think about what it is I am resisting, how it shows up in my life, and how I can think differently about it. Monthly, she writes a thank you love note to her favorite teachers, and at this time in my life, she is one of mine. Thank you for your generosity of thought and spirit and for showing up in my life at the right time. Oh, Mad Mosaic, what a lovely review. Thank you so much for taking the time to write it. I am honored to show up for you and to be one of your teachers. If you are one of my favorites, meaning you're on my email list, I sent you a Results Rafts worksheet, so you don't need to rewind or take notes or copy everything down from this episode. Just open the worksheet, write the result that you want, and start answering the rest of the questions to figure out a thought you can intentionally think to get what you want. If you're not on my email list yet and you want to get the worksheet or any of the other extras from any of the other episodes, become one of my favorite people by going to bexb.org/favorites. Give me your email address and I will send you the digital PDF that contains today's worksheets plus everything else from all the previous episodes. And before we go today, here's one more reminder. Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave me a review if you haven't already. And if you already have, then thank you. Is there someone else in your household or a friend who can leave a review too? See, I'm so determined. And just to follow along on my goal, you can check Apple Podcast reviews daily, just like I am, to see if the number is going up, to read other people's reviews, and to cheer me along as I cross this river. Next week, I will be sharing my wrap-up of my first year as a podcast host and resistance coach, and I'll be giving you some of the behind the scenes of what I've learned and what I've done during 2020. And I am super excited to tell you about a wonderful tool I have been using all year long that I want to give to you to use next year. So don't miss the very last episode of 2020 and season 1 of the Release Your Resistance podcast. Thank you so much, as always, for listening and for leaving me a review. And I will talk to you next week. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.